tonight I'm going to do some scene reads from Trick or Treat, All Hallows Possession, and They Rise on a Blood Moon. All available as ebooks, but also available in 5-bone. Anthology 5, out now under my middle grade name of TK Wrathbone. Here we go with a scene read from Trick or Treat. Robbie's bravado had lost steam the moment he entered the property. He'd barely walked 3 feet along the path when he'd been swathed in black, the darkness enveloping him. All sounds had dulled, all lights had dimmed, and he was realising what a mistake it had been. I just wanted to look like the tough guy, he muttered under his breath. His eyes grew wide and took in everything around him, which wasn't much. I just wanted to be known as the kid who went into lot 666 and came back. 1 foot in front of the other, he moved slowly, silently. A leaf crunched under his foot. Bugger, so much for being silent. Maybe he should be louder. Hey ho, hey ho. His voice faltered. Off to Trick or Treat I go. Why the hell would you start singing that, he asked himself. Hello, he mumbled, hoping he was getting closer to the house. Anybody there? His eyes rapidly moved from side to side. Hello. The world was completely silent. Not a scream, not a cry, not a child getting excited over a piece of candy. Nothing, absolutely nothing. A cool breeze ruffled his cape, causing the hairs on his arms to rise to attention, and he shivered as it sent a chill down his spine. I must be absolutely batshit crazy to think of doing this. His feet moved on, no longer controlled by him. He wanted to turn, to run back to the gate and his friends, to finish the last 5 streets off and go home and count how much candy he'd scored. But he couldn't. He'd be called a coward. A pathetic loser. Stupid. Maybe I can say I rang the bell and no one answered, that no one lives here, he thought. His gaze darted all over the place. I could do that, run back and say I'd done it when I actually hadn't. No one would know except for me. No one would know. No one would be able to prove otherwise. His foot hit something and he looked down. He tapped his foot against it and felt the outline with it. Is that a step? Have I reached the front porch? Gazing in front of him, he focused on the small light on the floor. It was a pumpkin head, all aglow, with the most evil expression he'd ever seen, and he'd seen a few that night. And now I'm doing a scene read from All Hallows Possession. I am loving these ghost meringues. Lena picked up her white swirly dessert and bit into it. A lime creme oozed into her mouth. The pumpkin donut balls are delish too. Zara licked her fingers to get every speck of sugar off. It's like one of those Jaffa chocolate balls. Chocolate on the inside, orange on the outside. This spider cupcake's awesome. Gemma shoved hers in Lena's face, making her squeal and shrink back. Get that away from me. Lena flapped her hands in front of her face, closed her eyes and turned her head away. Get that away from me. Gemma, stop teasing her, Miss Grant reprimanded. She and Miss Halston were down one end of the table, with the girls either side. It's heading for 7 and the movie starts soon. Quentin said he'd be back by 6:30. Must have become caught up in trick-or-treating, Greta replied and finished off her coffee. She noticed Mrs. Reeves as well as several waitstaff stop what they were doing and wander towards the door with blank expressions on their faces. What on earth? Where are they going? Are you girls finished? She saw them nod. I'm just going to check outside and then we'll get ready for the movie. She rose from her chair and happened to look out the window into the fading lights. A frown crossed her brows. What the hell? Where are they going? Hurrying out to the front porch, she found Barrett, Cordell and the boys. What's happening? We don't know, Cordell murmured. It just started a few minutes ago. Everyone just started walking towards the end of town. What's going on? Gina stopped beside them with the girls. Where's everyone going? We don't know, Barrett repeated and continued watching. Sydney and Gemma moved forward, both excited by what they were seeing. A possible possession. They've headed for the Hallows homestead, Keenan murmured, and hastily pulled his bag from his back. He dug through it and brought out the gadget he'd used on the mechanical spider. It wasn't as if he had any real ghost hunting equipment. They watched as the townsfolk walked out of town and up to the homestead on the hill, watched as their torches were lit and waved around. What time did Mrs. Reeves say they found Hallows hanging from the tree? Nathan asked. Which Mrs. Reeves? Gemma asked with an brow. Nathan sniggered. Yeah, there do seem to be a few of them in this town. Just a few, Gemma replied. You mean Museum Reeves? Yeah, that one, he muttered. Evening. Keenan raised his binoculars to his eyes, just like about now. He focused the lenses and watched. Holy crap! They're near the tree and there's a guy on a horse with ropes around his neck. Barrett yanked the binoculars from Keenan's hand and raised them to his own eyes. Jesus, he muttered. There is. What are they doing? Reenacting it. Well, it did happen on Halloween, Sydney reminded him and heard a hoarse whinny. Oh no, it didn't. Barrett watched in horror. It did. The horses headed this way. What? Mrs. Grant and Miss Holston gasped. The children! The thunder of hooves sounded in the distance, but rapidly grew louder and harder, faster than any horse could possibly go. Keenan held up his instrument in the hope of getting a reading, and he got one all right. That horse bolted into town as if the devil was after him, but came to a shuddering halt in front of the teens, its eyes blazing red as the head of Jebediah Jacobus Hallows hung from the rider's hand. Everyone stood frozen as the horse reared, snorted smoke from its nostrils, and the rider held up the head, shaking it as some kind of ominous warning. Then they took off, flying down the main street, dust at their heels, smoke wafting through the air. And now I'm doing a scene read of They Rise on a Blood Moon. Within minutes, the town came into view. A typically beautiful, picturesque postcard town that had long settled into the side of the mountain for protection. Each house was the same, each road named after a different tree, and the colours blended into the surrounding greenery. Everything's green, Zeb muttered, peering over Flynn's shoulder one moment, Jarrett's the next, as he was stuck in the middle of the back seat. It's because they wanted to be environmentally friendly and make sure everything they built blended in with their surroundings, Bethany told them over her shoulder. Do you learn nothing in school? She rolled her eyes and turned back to stare out the windows. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful, Zeb silently mocked behind her back, making the boys grin. Okay, here we are. Marcus drove into the service station and pulled up beside a Bowser. I'll get the petrol. You kids don't go far. 4 doors open and 6 kids and 2 adults alighted. I'm going to the restroom, Martina told him. Girls, do you need the bathroom? The boy sniggered, making the girls blush. Do you boys need the bathroom? Martina raised an authoritative brow at them, making them blush. No, miss, they muttered, glancing away and scuffing the tips of their shoes into the chipped concrete under their feet. We're just, going... Flynn frantically looked around and saw the local tourist centre right next door. We'll be in there, he pointed, and he, Seb, and Jarrett hurried over. Martina shut her door and glanced at Marcus, who shook his head. We'll go and freshen up. Come along, girls. She led the way into the station and found the restroom. Marcus continued to pump petrol and watch the world go by, wondering why it was so quiet except for the small cavalcade of cars leaving town. Meanwhile, the boys were perusing the shelves in the tourist centre to see if there was anything they'd consider taking home. They found nothing of worth to waste their money on. And what are you young'uns doing in this neck o' the woods? The boys spun around but saw no one. Who said that? Flynn asked. I did. Ah! The boys jumped and spun around to see a grizzled old man with white wispy hair and a long white wispy beard. Normally, folk would leave town this time of year. The old man stroked his beard and his pale blue eyes glanced over them. So what are you doing here? My dad thought it was a good idea for us to get away for Halloween, Flynn mumbled. The old man continued stroking and looked from the boys to the road outside to see more cars leaving. Most people get out of town round Halloween, especially when it's a blood moon. Although, he frowned and trailed off. That's only an old wives' tale, but no one takes a chance in case it's not on a blood moon but Halloween instead. Although, it has been both, but everyone returns to town and finds everything normal and how they left it. He shuffled around the boys and behind the counter. What are you talking about? Flynn finally asked, sharing frowns with his friends. Seb twirled a finger next to his temple and rolled his eyes. What am I talking about? The old man muttered, more to himself than the boys, as he pottered around behind the counter. The zombie plague, of course. And I have no idea why I put on an accent, but hey, it's a story. And they were some scene reads from Trick or Treat or Hallow's Possession, and They Rise on a Blood Moon, all available as ebooks or in 5-bone, Anthology 5. Out now, all under my middle grade name of TK Wrathbone. Also in a large print, trade paperback, hardcover laminate, and dust jacket hardcover, all at good online bookstores.